Another pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Arden Radford, and she's giving a talk entitled Open Source Data and Methods for Estimating Health Risks of PM 2.5 from Coal-Fired Power Plants.
Thanks, Jeff. We can just go to the next slide and I'll get started. So what you're seeing here is a map of energy infrastructure funding from China's Belt Road Initiative. The Belt Road Initiative is a key funder in developing countries across the globe, and this map represents billions in investment. And what I want to bring your attention to here is that the majority of this funding is going to coal-fired power plants, which are shown here in the black bars. Next. And this is actually one of those coal-fired power plants. This is the Port Qasim power plant in Karachi, Pakistan. It was commissioned in 2017. As you can see, it's actually quite close to residential and industrial areas in this photo. And we wanted to use this as a case study for understanding the impacts of these emissions. And actually, you can clearly see that kind of plume coming out of that cooling stack. Next. So when we say impact from emissions, there's kind of two ways of looking at it. From a global scale, we understand that increasing the amount of CO2 from combusting fossil fuels in the atmosphere leads to increased temperatures and increased impacts of global warming. But when it comes to the local impacts to, say, the community or the environment there's a lot of stuff coming out of these smokestacks that we have just a lot less information about. This is either due to a lack of monitoring or lack of clear environmental regulation. Next. So when it comes to that, that's where our project goals were basically coming at. We want to know, what are the impacts of power plant emissions on local health outcomes? You all have heard a lot about PM 2.5. We used it here as a proxy for understanding how health is impacted, because PM 2.5 exposure over a long period of time leads to respiratory disease, heart disease, and stroke. Next. Additionally, too, we wanted to make sure we could develop a better methodology and tool set for Additionally, we wanted to make sure we could understand a better methodology and tool set for assessing health impacts of power plant emissions. This means that we wanted to make sure our data was easily accessible and open source, so it could be replicated anywhere, as well as it was computationally inexpensive and designed for use by government organizations and civil society. Next. So the first step of our process was to get the ground level concentrations. This was a 3-step process of understanding information about the power plant, taking a NASA open source data to create a map of the area, and then also taking open source modeling output for understanding atmospheric behavior. We then kind of joined and fed these into the air mod dispersion model. Next. To create this map here. What this map is showing is basically interpolated concentrations of particulate matter. The black dot represents the power plant's location, and you can see that red and yellow plume represents how the pollution is being spread at ground level. Next. We then combine that social cost we then combine that ground level concentration with census data from Pakistan, health information, as well as a modeling of how risk is already inherent in the ambient concentration to get our per capita social costs. Next. And in the end, we discovered that continued enforcement of environmental regulations is essential to minimizing negative health outcomes. In cases where enforcement model runs are done, the per capita social costs drop drastically to practically zero. And additionally, too, we proved that open source approaches were feasible globally and comparable to proprietary data methods and models used typically in EIAs. Thank you.